We are deep in the middle of preparing our garden to be on the American Hydrangea Society garden tour this season, which is just wild to say because this garden was absolutely nothing just a few years ago. And it's amazing how far a garden can come if you focus on planting a little bit of your garden every year. Anyways, we're not going to talk about that. We're obviously going to talk about hydrangeas. We are in the middle of mulching, so you're going to see mulch bags everywhere. I don't really clean up or script my videos. This is just me and you having some good old garden time in the garden. Today is all about hydrangeas, so let me walk you around, show you which hydrangeas I'm growing, what I like about them, what I don't like about them, and whether I would plant them again. I am partial to hydrangeas, so this might not be a complete fair assessment if you aren't a hydrangea lover, but I've got some really cool ones and I want to tell you all about them. The rest of the garden is looking pretty spectacular too. I'm going to try to add plant names to the things that are in bloom where I can, but if I miss something and you have a question, just drop me a comment with the timestamp and the color of what you're interested in knowing the name of, and I will get back to you. Let's start with the macrophylla type hydrangeas first. This is Endless Summer. This is the OG, the original Endless Summer. And I got lucky enough to where I snagged a bunch of these really cheap at Home Depot. I picked them up looking very sad on the clearance rack. But as you can see, they are amazing. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I garden, my soil skews acidic, so they bloom primarily blue. But this is the type of hydrangea that if you have more basic soil, these will bloom pink for you. These are a great hydrangea to add if you want a taller hydrangea. These are not a compact variety. They are large and in charge and definitely will need the space in your garden. So I would absolutely recommend this as a back of the border type hydrangea. It's the same hydrangea from the first clip. And honestly, I don't know what else to say about them. They're just solid hydrangeas. If you live in a colder climate, this is the type of hydrangea that blooms on both old and new wood, but primarily on old wood. So I think it takes a while for this hydrangea to get to maturity to bloom on new wood. If I lived in a much colder climate where I had late spring frosts and could lose the buds on this hydrangea, I would probably go for another type of hydrangea altogether, and I'll show you this in just a second. But while we're on the topic of macrophylla hydrangeas, they're just gonna get smaller and smaller. So let's go over to a more compact variety and we'll just keep getting tinier and tinier. Under this persimmon tree is Summer Crush. This is, I think, the next hydrangea that Endless Summers put out. This is a more compact variety. I think Endless Summers can grow up to 5-6 feet, and Summer Crush gets in the 3.5 to 4 feet type range. This is one hydrangea here, and it probably would be happier if it had some more space, but honestly, there's something about the hydrangea peeking up between the hostas and this persimmon tree that just brings me joy, so it's gonna have to deal with its location. The Summer Crush hydrangea, I feel like also has a brighter bloom color, and this one blooms earlier. So these blooms are already pretty much starting to age, where the OG is a little bit later blooming, maybe by just a couple of weeks. So my best advice is to plant all the different types of hydrangeas. If you scatter different types of hydrangeas throughout your garden, you will have hydrangea blooms throughout the entire season. Let's get smaller on the mop head hydrangeas. Let me show you a few more. Back here is the newest Eclipse hydrangea. This is a really unique hydrangea. I think this one stays under 4 feet tall and wide, but what's really unique about this hydrangea is its leaf color. So this one actually didn't bloom for me this year either. A couple of different hydrangeas just aren't blooming and I couldn't really tell you why, but the nice thing about this hydrangea is that it looks really unique and beautiful even when it doesn't have blooms on it. So it's a little bit more acceptable for this hydrangea not to bloom than the other mop head type hydrangeas that I have in the garden. Eclipse is supposed to bloom a bright pink, which is also a unique color for me to have here in my Atlanta garden. Very rarely do I get a pink hydrangea. So when this finally blooms, if it doesn't die back again to the ground this year, I will be very excited. I'm not usually the biggest fan of lace cap hydrangeas, but this Fuji waterfall is absolutely beautiful. The hydrangea blooms almost shoot out like little shooting stars, and the blooms that do open up are this beautiful, doubly incredible hydrangea. I think it's so pretty. The inner closed part of the hydrangea, when it opens up, it's the subtle light blue. This is just such a unique hydrangea. It's not planted in the best spot because this also is a large and in charge hydrangea. But the nice thing about hydrangeas is that in the wintertime, when they're dormant, You can move them anywhere. So this is one that I'll eventually play musical chairs with, but one that I wanted to share with you because it's a very unique and special look in the garden. You can barely see these blooms popping out. This is actually a hydrangea that I planted almost 3 years ago, and this is the first time it's ever bloomed for me. I planted it from a 1 gallon size, so it's not because I cheaped out and I got a tiny, tiny one. Truly, I can't tell you why this took so long to bloom. Every year it died back to the ground, and this is a hydrangea that's supposed to bloom on both old and new wood. This is Elizabeth Ashley hydrangea. The pictures online blew me away. The color of the blooms are more of a pastel-y, and I thought that was just so unique and beautiful. So I really wanted to grow this, but because it's only bloomed once in 3 years and it's very spotty. Some of the shrubs don't have blooms, a few have them, so this is the first year we actually get to see them. This is one of those hydrangeas that I cannot recommend in the garden. There are better hydrangeas that stay this size, under 3 feet, than this one that just doesn't reliably bloom for some reason. Right back here, this weensy baby hydrangea, this is Wee Bit Grumpy. This is a compact hydrangea from Proven Winners. I think it stays under 3 feet, maybe even under 2 feet. It's just a tiny little cute hydrangea. For whatever reason, this one didn't bloom as well for me this year. And that could be a variety of reasons because, like I said, these hydrangeas bloom primarily on old wood, but also sometimes on new wood. So I might still get some blooms here and there. Overall, recently, I've been finding myself getting more excited about new panicle varieties or new smooth hydrangea varieties and less excited about new macrophylla varieties just because sometimes their blooms can be spotty, and I've stopped covering things with the late spring frost just because if you make it, you make it. I'm definitely moving to more of a hands-off gardener. And the other types of hydrangeas, those bloom on new wood, so there's no chance of a late spring frost zapping all of your flowers for the season. But that being said, if you love the colorful hydrangeas and you're looking for a more compact variety, this is a very small, cute one. These cute little hydrangeas, it's the first year I've ever seen them bloom as well, but that's because I cheaped out and bought plugs from a wholesale grower thinking that I might still get blooms in a couple of years. I plant a lot of my garden from quart-sized plants, and those will bloom for me that same year or the next year and grow very quickly. This hydrangea, which I think is called like Everlasting Evolution. It's Evolution something. I'll put the name at the bottom. I can't remember all of a sudden. This is also one of those hydrangeas that I saw the picture online. I saw that this was a compact under 3 feet bloomer that bloomed on both old and new wood, and I was sold. I thought this would be amazing. This is the first year I'm seeing blooms, but this is one of those hydrangeas that I can't tell you if it's because it's not a reliable bloomer or if it's just because I planted it from a plug. And it takes a while for it to get mature enough to reliably bloom year after year. We'll see from here on out. So I can't tell you specifically about this hydrangea, whether or not it's worth it, but I can tell you not to buy hydrangeas from plugs unless you're incredibly patient, or maybe if instead of putting it directly in the ground, you baby it in containers and fully fertilize the heck out of it in those early years. I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I do know that waiting 3 years for blooms is a really long time, and I'm not sure I will ever buy hydrangeas from plugs again. I've definitely learned my lesson. This area is the newest area that I planted up, and there are tons of hydrangeas. I'm gonna bring you in closer because you know how it is when you first plant hydrangeas. They're not yet mature. Next year, I cannot wait for this area to mature and bloom to its full potential. I want to show you the hydrangeas that I planted here because they have some unique features to them. I feel so weird showing you a hydrangea that has only a few blooms around the outside and no blooms in the middle, but that's just what happened this year. This is Seaside Serenade Newport hydrangea. I'm going to insert a picture of what it should look like next year or in a few years. It's a hydrangea that's been specially bred to have thicker stems so it doesn't flop, and also brighter colors. And I love me some bright colors in the garden, so this is one that I'm really looking forward to. This is a hydrangea that grows about 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So the plan here in this garden space, and to be honest, in every garden space, is as these plants mature and grow, I can bump out my borders just a little bit to make room for this at its mature size. The correct way to plant would be to space everything properly from the beginning, but that also means that you have to pick more weeds, and I'd rather move plants around and have a lush looking garden and less weeds to pick because less ground is exposed than to space plants properly and spend a bunch of time weeding. So that's just me, but also you have to do what's right for you. This is a hydrangea that I'm looking forward to telling you about as it matures, and I'm coming back to this one because this is my new favorite, but it's in the panicle hydrangea family, which is, yes, very weird to see it bloom this time of year. So let me talk about it when I talk about the panicles. Quick moment of appreciation for this view because I'm so excited. This whole garden space is new this year and it's really come together. And standing right there where you are and looking this way at the shed and the coop, which used to be my least favorite parts of the garden, there was nothing blocking the view to the compost. And seeing it now this year fully planted up, a shed, no more looking at the compost. So happy. I've got one last hydrangea down there that I wanted to tell you about, and then we'll go to other types. This is a compact hydrangea variety. I think it stays either under 3 or 2 feet. I kind of have a thing for cute hydrangeas that stay small. This is from the Let's Dance series, and it's supposed to be the fastest maturing hydrangea that'll bloom on both old and new wood for you. So that's something that's really important for me. Like I said, I hate when hydrangeas skip a year of blooming. It just seems like such a waste of space. So I wanted to test this out and see if it would bloom well for me on both old and new wood. That is still yet to be determined, but this is a really beautiful hydrangea and it bloomed pink for me, which is confusing, but I'll take it. This hydrangea over here, this is Ruby Slipper's Oakleaf hydrangea. Oakleaf hydrangeas are also a type of hydrangea that blooms on only old wood. So this is one of those hydrangeas that you never have to prune if you plant them in your garden, but many varieties are very large and in charge. This is also a native variety. So if you're interested in adding more natives to your garden, this is a perfect one to add. Ruby Slippers is actually a more compact variety of Oakleaf hydrangeas. There are some that can get, I don't even know how tall. I don't have space for that, so I don't look at those varieties. Ruby Slippers will stay about 5 to 6 feet tall and wide, and it buds up and blooms earlier than mop head hydrangeas in my garden, and it ages to this fabulous pink that pretty much stays on the shrub until mid to late summer. It really depends on the type of season. If we have a really hot, dry summer, these will start to go brown earlier, but if we have a milder summer, a wetter summer, these will stay beautiful for longer. So it's one of those hydrangeas, if you're looking for something that is interesting for a very long time, I love Oakleaf hydrangeas. And even though they bloom on old wood, I've never actually had this hydrangea skip a year. So I don't know what sorcery this hydrangea has that other mop head hydrangeas might not, but this one's always been very reliable. The other thing that's great about Oakleaves is it has fall interest and winter interest. In fall, the leaves will turn a nice yellow, orangey, reddish, sometimes even purpley colors you can get. And in the winter, where your other hydrangeas just look like sticks, this has some interesting bark. It looks a little bit like a cinnamon stick. I think it's in the eye of the beholder if you call that winter interest or just something different, but it is a unique feature of this hydrangea that other types of hydrangeas don't have, so I wanted to call that out. And of course, where there's a taller variety, I also have a smaller variety, and this is the last one in the Oakleaf category. This is Pee-wee Oakleaf hydrangea. It's adorable. It stays under 3 feet. I'm not sure there's much to say about it since I already babbled on and on about Oakleaf hydrangeas, other than it's cute and little. If you've always wanted to grow Oakleaf hydrangeas, but you didn't have 6 feet of space to devote it, you can now plant Oakleaf hydrangeas by planting a smaller, more compact variety like Pee-wee. I have 2 mountain hydrangeas in the garden, and honestly, the main reason that I planted them in the garden was just to see if I was a lace cap hydrangea lover or not. Mountain hydrangeas are native to North America, so if that's important to you, this is a hydrangea that you can plant that will give you that blue and pink color in the garden. It is really pretty how flat they are, and honestly, this is a very unique color. You've got the blue in the center, the pinkish sepals around the outside. I go back and forth on whether I like lace cap hydrangeas. I'd love to know whether you're a lace cap hydrangea fan or you like the bigger mop head blooms. I think it gives a different look in the garden, and so I do love it next to the mop heads to contrast it. They bloom at a similar time and it's a similar height, so it's something that you can definitely blend in to an existing hydrangea hedge. It is an overall very pretty shrub and a native shrub, so I'm supporting the pollinators. And then back here is my other mountain hydrangea. This is Tough Stuff Aha hydrangea. This, I think, is a more beautiful lace cap hydrangea. If I had to pick only one mountain hydrangea, it would be this one. It reminds me a little bit of the Fuji waterfall, where it has these beautiful double blooms, and then it still has the blue in the center. This is a slower grower. I planted this a year after, and you can see it has never really caught up. It's also in a lot more shade, so maybe it's not in the most ideal light condition. I shouldn't complain, but it's a beautiful shrub. If I could only grow one type of mountain hydrangea, it would be this one. I just think it adds a little bit of something extra that's more beautiful than kind of that standard tough stuff lace cap hydrangea. I don't have much else to say about lace cap hydrangeas. I have always wanted to grow the variegated one. I heard that one grows even slower, and that's honestly the main reason that I haven't planted it. I don't have that much space in my garden to devote to things that don't grow well, but it is a very pretty look. I'm going to insert a picture of the hydrangea type that I'm thinking about. I would love to know whether it's a slow grower for you or whether I heard that wrong and it's actually a great grower and a reliable bloomer and I should add it to my garden. So let me know what you think in the comments. Behind me is a false climbing hydrangea vine, and yes, I, Michelle, am crazy for planting it right in this space and pruning it to maintain this shape. This is one of those things that I don't recommend you planting unless you love pruning. I am constantly cutting this back because it can grow, I think, 10 feet a year. I forget exactly how much. It's a rapid grower once it gets established, and I'm reaching that established phase. So I'm debating with myself how much is worth it, but while I'm able-bodied and can prune, I will be pruning it. It's very beautiful. It takes about 5 years to bloom, but once it does bloom, it's magical, but I'm not sure it's worth all of the work if you want to be a hands-off gardener. My most recent obsession in the hydrangea world have been hydrangeas that bloom on new wood, and of that, there are two types. There are the smooth hydrangeas and the panicle hydrangeas. The panicle hydrangeas, I am grateful that I plant them later in the summer, but they're not in bloom now. And in fact, I'm incredibly impatient looking for those buds this time of year because all the other hydrangeas are in bloom. Panicle hydrangeas will teach you patience and you will appreciate them when they are in bloom. So I'm glad I planted them, but smooth hydrangeas are my most recent obsession because they bloom the same time of year that hydrangeas that bloom on old wood do. And it's just beautiful. I think they're so sophisticated. I'm becoming kind of a moon garden person where I love colors, but I also love how simple and beautiful an all white moon garden is. This is flowerful hydrangea. This is my new favorite smooth hydrangea because it has super thick, strong stems. And also it's constantly putting out blooms. So there's blooms that are open and huge. And then there are still buds behind it that are starting to open. And behind that, there are buds that are closed. So this is a hydrangea that's going to be blooming and looking gorgeous in my garden for a long time. I have Incredible, and then I have a few compact smooth hydrangea varieties that I also love. This is a hydrangea that stays under 4 feet, but sometimes you need a smaller hydrangea. So let me show you a smaller smooth hydrangea that I have in the garden that is just perfect around a middle layer in your garden or planted around a fountain like I have it. This right here is Invincible Wee White Hydrangea. Some of the blooms are starting to age and brown while others are still starting to open up. So this is another hydrangea that blooms for a long time. This is a hydrangea that stays under 3 feet, which is a size that can be tucked in most places and it just blends in beautifully in the garden. I'm going to insert some footage of other panicle hydrangeas and what they look like this time of year. And then we're going to appreciate this panicle hydrangea because this is my newest obsession and I had actually never heard about it until I saw it this year. This is early evolution hydrangea. This is a panicle hydrangea that blooms at the same time as your mophead hydrangeas, which is something that's incredibly special because panicle hydrangeas primarily bloom in early July, late June for me here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think in colder climates, they pretty much bloom in fall. So this is a very, very special hydrangea. And another thing that I'm obsessed with is that this is the hydrangea that stays 2 feet tall and wide. Other panicle hydrangeas are monsters. They can grow to 8-10 feet tall. So this is just such a cool hydrangea. I don't know how Monrovia did it or where they found this, but this is such a beautiful, elegant hydrangea. I'm obsessed with how it spreads out its little petals and how beautiful it looks. But this is one of those hydrangeas that I'm going to try very hard not to plant everywhere because this is an amazing size. 2 feet tall and wide is basically a medium-sized perennial. And according to the website, this is a hydrangea that holds on to its blooms for 5 months, which is insane to me. I'm going to see if that holds true here in Atlanta, where our conditions might vary based on wherever this was grown and that claim was made. But this is just such a beautiful hydrangea. I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed. I hope you can get your hands on it and try it in the garden, because this, I mean, look at it. She's a very special hydrangea. I think this wraps up all of the hydrangeas that I have in bloom in my garden right now. I'll do another one of these walkthroughs later in the summer when the panicle hydrangeas are in bloom. Like I said, right now I'm very impatient and I wish they would bloom, but later on, when all of the other types of hydrangeas are aged and pretty much done for the season, I'm grateful that I did plant some panicle hydrangeas so that I could continue that hydrangea love into the fall. Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful. I love seeing what the hydrangeas look like in people's gardens and not just in the cans at the nursery or in marketing photos. So hopefully this helps show you what the different types of hydrangeas you might be seeing at the nursery look like in a real garden. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel, and I will see you in the next video.